All right, we're doing another edition of Shitlords Unite. So, a bit of an exception to this week. Let's see how it goes. Doing two streams in 1 week. So we have Salt, say hello,
Hi.
and Frost.
Hello there.
Alrighty then. So let's start out with the first topic of discussion. Do we want to do just the? Or will we? I can screen share and here we go. One sec. That way everyone can see. Okay.
I am the walrus.
So for those who don't know what has happened here is basically the entire controversy on Kingdom Come Deliverance is basically that SJWs are offended that the person is a lead developer. I think it's in an article. Anyways, the developer behind the game is
Daniel Vavra. He was actually, if you recall, one of the... remember when The Escapists did those series of interviews with developers at the very beginning of Gamergate stating their views on them? He was one of the guys who was actually edited out of that.
Really?
Yeah, because a lot of people, a lot of aggros complained to The Escapists that he was quote-unquote racist and a harasser, I believe, as well. So he was his portion of that article, like the developers' take on Gamergate on The Escapist. I don't know if it's still up, but I probably think we have some archives floating around of that.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys who, just portrayed as racism. And basically, because of that, and his involvement in this game, I believe he's one of the main producers. A lot of people are saying, don't support this game, because Daniel Vavra supported Gamergate, a hate group, and he's racist and everything like that. And some of the controversy now is basically websites like Waypoint, Kotaku, Polygon, the usual suspects,
and also
Patrick
people on
Klepek.
Twitter. Yeah, people on Twitter.
Patrick Klepek, or Kelp, as I like to fucking call him, has basically said, "Oh, we don't want to talk about this game because it's one of its creators is racist, and we could because there were millions of black people in medieval Europe." We state that as fact because you can't prove the negative. Therefore, there were millions of black people.
Apparently, the Moors were black, even though they weren't.
Well, that's a complicated question in and of itself, because the Moors, yes, they did have contact with lots of medieval Europe. They just didn't go very far inland very often. And when you compare traveling distances alone in the Middle Ages, just think about this for a second. For someone to travel across France in the Middle Ages was the equivalent of someone taking a ship around the world. That's how vast the distances were to people back then, because the technology for traveling and basically everything was so primitive that it would take you at least a month to cross France, basically.
Yep.
Wow, I can talk when I'm motivated.
Sorry, I just had to quickly, because my dog was barking. I had to make sure I wasn't disturbing the stream. Well, we can take a crack at this article. So just because I really like One Angry Gamer as a source. So let's go through the article. Do you want to read, Salt, or should I?
I think I can do this.
Okay.
All right. If you've played Kingdom Come Deliverance, you've likely encountered characters sometimes jokingly and sometimes seriously quipping about being tossed into the pillory for one reason or another. Well, consider Kingdom Come Deliverance pilloried by offended game journalists for not meeting the sensibilities of their feigned, progressive, and sometimes regressive socio-political viewpoints. Many of the usual suspects who took a dislike to Kingdom Come Deliverance back in 2014, when the creative director and writer Daniel Vavra unequivocally denounced communism and made it known that he supported ethics in media journalism. This angered those who had made a living being unethical, and those who had used journalism and social media as a front to espouse third-wave feminism as male feminist allies, all while raping, harassing, and abusing women, as well as being pedophiles behind the scenes. I should note that he is There's well-documented behavior of a large swath of these aggros and gaming media
the irony
personalities
is
that have done this stuff.
they can't really deny it because there's links right there to exactly what he's referring to.
That's quite a way to end that paragraph. I have to say, this angered those who had made a living hell and those who had used journalism and social media as a front to expose third wave feminists, male feminist allies, all while raping, harassing, and abusing women, as well as being Jesus Christ.
You want to know something funny? Like, you keep on hoping for Will Wheaton to get caught up and like he's a harasser or he sexually assaulted some woman, but then you realize no one liked Crusher. Okay, no one's gonna put themselves in a position to be harassed by this guy because no one can stand the motherfucker. All right, continuing. Well, back in 2014, Kingdom Come Deliverance was still in development and building up crowdsourced funding. In 2018, the game is now out and available, and while many centrist reviewers have given their thoughts on the game, for better or for worse, some of the journalists standing as enemies to the consumer revolt against unethical journalist practices, aka Gamergate, decide to use their platforms to denounce Kingdom Come Deliverance for not aligning with their cultural communism.
It's gender communism. Gotta be specific.
Actually, you want to know something funny?
Culture Marxism would have probably been the better way to describe it, to be honest.
There is an article on The Atlantic right now that basically like proves. You remember James Damore?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an article right now that basically proves his points. I just posted a link in the description, but we can continue with this article. But I was just like posting it in rebuttal to this gender Marxism and stuff.
One sec, for some reason it's lagging. Jesus Christ!
Stop scrolling all around.
Yeah, I'm trying, but I was just. There we go. Okay.
Patrick Klepek, or Kelp, as I like to call him. Daniel Rendell and Austin Walker spent episode 135 of Waypoint Radio talking about why they weren't covering Kingdom Come Deliverance because it didn't feature minorities or people of color due to being historically accurate, and how the women in the game are portrayed how most women were back during the Middle Ages. They published a blurb on the site stating, quote, Waypoint hasn't written about the game yet, partially because we struggled over how to cover a game whose creative director has both publicly and forcefully supported Gamergate and made highly questionable statements about the game's historical accuracy regarding representation of people of color. Maybe we shouldn't cover it at all, end quote.
Then down and shut the fuck up about it.
The forums actually falls in lockstep and sync with the views presented by the Waypoint cast. One user in particular, Ali, claimed that just experiencing the opening act of Kingdom Come Deliverance allowed him to feel the cold reach of Gamergate's skeletal presence deep down in the very depths of his bone marrow, where the chill of ethics and journalism sent a tingling jolt up his body, where he realized that Gamergate must have been behind the game. Quote,
fucking histrionics. Holy shit.
Quote, holy shit, when I tried this game and promptly uninstalled Refunded when an objective called CW Rape popped up on the screen, I had no idea of this background, but as I dug deeper into the marketing and then the opening act, I was like, a bunch of things about this game's design philosophy feels like it's hinting at an ideology that formed Gamergate. Unquote. Right down to evoking The Witcher 2 and 3 in very particular ways. I kind of hate being able to feel this shit in my bones these days. End quote.
First of all, Gamergate is not an ideology.
It's a movement. That's it.
Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ.
And he's talking about Witcher 2 and 3 as if they're bad games because of stuff, too.
They were bad games to regressive soy boys.
Polygon's Charlie Hall was far less convinced that there was a good game hiding underneath the blood, sweat, and tears of Warhorse Studios, claiming that it was too unpolished and boring for his tastes. However, much like Ali, Hall couldn't let go of the feeling of the icy ethical grip of Gamergate's compendious claws, digging in like a vice grip around the warm and minuscule scrotum of his cultural beliefs.
That's a nice jab. That's a nice jab.
Near the end of the review, he decided to take jabs at the studio's creative director's social-political stance by writing, quote, Warhorse is a team of more than 150 people, but the game's creative director has gone out of his way to rationalize his support of Gamergate, a loosely knit hate group, citation needed, that has devoted time to harassing women, people of color, and journalists in the past. So outspoken is the studio's leadership on cultural issues that they have found it necessary to work with a German outlet to publish anti-fascist, anti-sexist, and anti-racist statements prior to their game's launch. Unquote.
The fact that they had to do that shows how afraid of these people they are, but they really had no reason to be, because in the end, all of this didn't matter.
Yeah, they sold boatloads. They sold boatloads. But even when they aren't picking from the bones of a movement that was supposed to have died 100 times over.
Sorry, you skipped over. Sorry, it's just for some reason this site has scripts. It makes here.
Okay. For the record, the FBI could not find any actionable evidence that Gamergate was ever an organized harassment campaign. The FBI could not find any actionable evidence, Brianna Wu.
You can't trust the FBI. They failed to stop multiple school shootings, so any investigating they do is obviously dismissed.
The FBI's findings were mirrored by a report from Women Action Media, a feminist organization that had a peer-reviewed report that indicated that Gamergate was not a harassment campaign. Nevertheless, the media can't seem to let go of its social media boogeyman and self-made cultural commandant. You can scroll down now.
Yeah, I'm trying. There we go.
But even when they aren't picking from the bones of a movement that was supposed to have died 100 times over, hint, we're still here, they're still picking from the flesh of the very human concept of masculinity. PC Gamer's James Davenport put in 20 hours or so of Kingdom Come Deliverance and decided that being an alpha male was quote-unquote gross. Quote, I'd been returning to town to see a woman I was courting in-game and figured it would take some time to get to know her. Not so. 3 or 4 dates in, after spending a few evenings together chatting and drinking, our date abruptly ended in the bone zone. Henry woke up alone, and then the quest completion drum sounded off. My Henry was imbued with a buff called Alpha Male, which has a few too many gross connotations to stomach, and as far as I can tell, that's it.
Are you fucking kidding me? He's complaining about getting laid in a video game?
No, he's complaining about the after effects. Here's the funny thing. When you have sex afterwards, you do have a boost of testosterone afterwards.
And what's it called?
But I mean, like 3 or 4 dates is like normally when most people have sex after they start dating.
This guy must be a cuck. To his credit, Davenport at least entertains the idea that he may be wrong about how Kingdom Come Deliverance treats sex and ladies, and is willing to put in more time and effort to see where it goes. It's more than that. What can be said of Waypoint opting to skip out in the game because both it and the developers did not meet the stringent standards of the inclement intersectional inquisition.
No one expects the intersectional inquisition.
It's intersectional. It wasn't too long ago that Devolver Digital tried entertaining the oligarchs of offense with the socio-political elementary within the Red Strings Club, only to find themselves excoriated by none other than Waypoint for not penning a narrative arc for a transgender character with the care of feathered fingers. Quote, they dead-named, just so anyone doesn't know about the controversy, they quote-unquote dead-named a transgender character within the game, and somehow then insulted every single transgender person in the world. Somehow. Throughout all of the attacks against Warhorse Studios for attempting to make Kingdom Come Deliverance historically accurate, and all the printed criticisms made towards creative director Daniel Vavra, the studio has stood firm throughout it all, and appears to be paying dividends in sales, as the game has already surpassed 340,000 units on PC alone, according to Steam Spy.
I have a question. What does dead-named mean?
You remember Bruce Jenner?
Yeah.
Now that she is Caitlyn Jenner, calling her by her old name is effectively dead. Is what is
Oh,
called dead naming.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just call that calling people by the name they're most known as or their legal name. Legal name. I don't get. Are they trying to insinuate that that person is dead when it's literally the same
Actually,
person?
kind of. It's very complicated. You probably don't want to get into it on this podcast, but there are subsections of the transgender community that would prefer to think of their old selves as quote unquote dead and just live their lives kind of like as being born again. You want to say that?
So it's spiritual or religious in a sense.
No, well, I guess maybe, but like I said, you don't want to get into it because you might risk offending someone on the stream, and we wouldn't want that.
Thanks for the explanation because I don't really understand.
Yeah,
Well,
but I think the reason they take it as an insult is you wouldn't walk up to someone you knew, and or someone you barely knew, you just met, and they told you their name, and you found out that what their old name was. They would take it as an insult if you referred to them as their old name instead of their new one.
Well, it's basically like it goes back to like if you see a guy or a woman and like or if you go and that woman looks very masculine and you call him a guy even though you know it's a woman, like it's kind of insulting that way.
Yeah,
that's the best comparison I can put it with.
Yeah, I've got nothing against like people getting offended and stuff because of that. Because you wouldn't you be offended if someone called you an entirely different name all the time?
Yeah, and
yeah,
here
so, there's no issue with it. It's just when a game like Red Strings Club gets criticized for an individual decision of an individual, like let's say trans character in a game, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're representative of all trans people in the world, or that they're insulting every trans person in the world due to the decisions of a writer or a character in the game.
I see in the chat, personal tips, ethics, how dare you? They wrote that article because they wanted the clicks of writing a review but didn't want the negative attention of writing in a review. That's actually an interesting way of looking at it.
Well, it's clickbait. They're generating outrage just for the sake of it. It's like saying, we don't want to review this game because we think it's racist. Because we think it's racist. We don't want to back up our assertions with any actual evidence or anything. We'll just call it racist. It's like when Giant Bomb said on their year-end podcast in December that Cuphead was racist because some articles have been written basically saying, oh, because animation in the 1930s was frequently racist, that means Cuphead is racist automatically. So this outrage baiting is so stupid. It's intellectually dumb. Like in 10 or 30 years, do they think people will look back on the stuff that they say and think it was of any worth, of any value? Like, fuck, sometimes I want to like bash these people's heads together and say, are you reading what you're writing, you stupid motherfuckers? I should
I mean, no. I like hearing what people have to say because the stream yesterday was about GameSpot and their ridiculous approach to games difficulty, and this is just the other side of the gaming industry where you have just bad journalism where the person just can't understand the audience of gaming in general, and then you have the social justice crap of them just advocating for stuff that serves a minority of the audience that is the loudest, always getting triggered by everything.
Actually, that kind of ties into that Atlantic article that I linked. Let me just read the title and it'll explain everything. The more gender equality, the fewer women in STEM. A new study explores a strange paradox. In countries that empower women, they are less likely to choose math and science professions.
Yeah, I mean, if you see, if you're gonna watch the documentary Brainwash,
this is on the Atlantic, by the way. Like a
but I mean,
feminist organization.
the guy who
article.
did this documentary, it was like 4 years, 5 years back, and proving this as well. So I mean, it's not that surprising
I mean,
when people.
even if let's just follow these game journalists' line of thought. Even if a full 50% of gamers were women, what type of games are they playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have, let's say, mobile gaming, if your audience there is 75% women, it would make sense, perhaps, to have most game developers in the mobile scene be made up of women or feminist inclined organizations making games for them, because that's where their money is for that mode of development, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
here, ZZ it says, isn't that called the Swedish paradox? What's described in the Atlantic article? Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's one of the things. There's also the paradox that they have with regarding parents and grades. That's a part of that as well.
personal Chip says, I'll tell you what I'm playing: Plant Tycoon and Monster Hunter World.
Yeah. But when you dive deep into those numbers, let's say 50% of women are gamers, right? That they keep on spouting and spouting. I would hedge a huge bet that most of those gamers are either in mobile scene or are shifting or are playing mostly casual. There's probably
Did you? Is it me or did he go?
It seems like Salt lagged out.
Oh, oh man, you robot ass! God damn it! Let's give him a few seconds. I, uh, I sent him a message. Anyways, I think what he was saying. Well, if you look at the statistics, it's pretty clear on what the difference what men and women are playing. I mean, I have my mother just playing like these free to play games, these farming games, like these very casual games, and then you have myself as an individual playing really hardcore games compared to what she. I mean, I think not Christina Host Summers said the ratio. She put up a survey or something on one of our factual feminist videos saying it was 7-1 or something like that when it comes to hardcore and these casual gamers. So 7-1 in a male to female ratio.
Well, if you look at like the ratios of male to female gamers when it comes like into more dedicated communities, and even not just gaming, things like sports, things like dancing, um you often find that the ratio is between like 7-1 and 8-1 females to males.
Yes, personal chips. Well, that's what I mean. I'm playing right now one mainstream game and one casual game. I've always been attracted to odd genre games and only take and for on mainstream games. Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of the exception. When I mean, not many women compared to men actually play hardcore games. Whether it's on console or on PC gaming. Um, yeah, I think we can move on. Is Salt back? No,
Uh no.
no, I
Like
don't
all
think
of
so.
the female gamers that I know play things like The Sims or League of Legends, but when they're playing like League of Legends, they don't delve off into things like ranked or competitive play.
Yeah,
And a lot of them don't even play on desktop computers. They play on things like laptops.
yeah. Well, that's true. So let's move on to the next topic. Just have a okay. Next topic is Black Panther. I'm sure you are familiar with the controversy around that, Frost. So for those who haven't, here I'm screen sharing. Basically everyone, not everyone, but the SJW crowd, or people who basically just have gone nuts with this Black Panther movie.
Well, it's
And
something you don't hear about often, but often black people here in the U.S. call them the pro-black crowd.
oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, but you have these people basically claiming that this is gonna solve racism and all sorts of things. And I've seen tweets on my timeline on Twitter where they basically have said, "Oh, this is what Africa looks like, and it's not fictional; it's real," and just really stupid stuff.
People that
And
don't know
even like,
Wakanda isn't a real place.
and even
Like,
also that one picture that got shared of people basically
Okay.
putting their fists into the air and doing the Black Panther or Black Power sign. Oh, you're back, Salt.
they're
Yeah, for some odd
basically,
reason, my internet shut down for no reason.
Yeah, would you just roboted out? I'm like, okay. He just disappeared. Yeah, we can move on to the next topic.
I mean,
So
if they want to get technical, they're basically admitting they're the mirror version of the KKK when they do things like that.
You know, it's not outside the realm of reason for a film like this to become a movement. I mean, remember what happened with Star Wars? It became a movement in and of itself.
It was a meme.
yeah,
Yeah.
but let's go. Let's, because this is Salo. So I want to go through it. Did you want to read again, Salt? Or do you want?
Sure.
This one
Black
is lagging.
Panther
Okay,
is
sorry.
a film about history. That makes history. Salon talks to Rashad Robinson of Color of Change about the groundbreaking achievements of Marvel's new blockbuster. Black Panther is that rarest of things to come out of Hollywood these days, an unprecedented history-making achievement. The magnitude of what it has accomplished needs to be understood through two paradigms: the context of what this film represents as a milestone, and its greatness as a work of popular art that speaks intelligently about both politics and history.
It doesn't.
Let's start with what Black Panther represents. It's relatively rare to see a major blockbuster superhero film starring an African American protagonist, let alone a supporting cast that is also overwhelmingly African American. Black Panther has an African American director, writers, musicians, and many other creative decision makers and artists behind the scene. That level of representation for artists working on major film is still, to the frustration of many, notable. Did they forget about Hancock?
Well,
Yeah, but
I'm gonna
Hancock
get to it.
didn't have enough black people apparently.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get to that later. But go ahead.
The movie industry is deeply racist, structurally racist, Rashad Robinson, the executive director of Color of Change, told Salon. The film industry has often justified underrepresenting African Americans by saying that movies featuring black casts don't perform as well as the box office. But Robinson doesn't buy that argument. It's not about the economics, it's about a system that has been largely impenetrable for creatives of color. But I think that is changing. I think that Black Panther represents a real, not just a wake-up call, but for an industry that has been struggling economically, a pathway. He added, the big budget Hollywood movie is one of the last places that people across class, and in some ways across race, but definitely across class, are laughing and cheering to the same thing at the same time. You know, we don't go to the same churches. We don't even go to the same schools anymore. In so many ways, the segregations in this country across class and race make cinema and movies a real place where connections and common ground can be built.
And it's because of people like you, ironically, why that is.
You know, yeah, it's quite ironic, like, because it's these type of people who are advocating for black people sticking to their own and shaming mixed racial relationships and like.
Honestly, this sounds like one of those guys that is at one of the small black churches in Chicago and has only ever went to that church and has never tried to go to another church, anything other than that church, and then complains about why the people at that church there isn't any white people at the church or any black people at the church that's 5 miles away. Well, maybe you should probably go to that church. Then maybe there will be some black people there. How about that?
Well, the funny thing is, Chadwick Boseman and some of the other stars of the movie brought their wives to the premiere, and those wives happened to be white. So they were criticized for having white women as wives, basically.
Yeah, I also remember Malia Obama has a white boyfriend, and people that were like saying, "Oh, she's a race traitor." Like, come on. I mean, you're
Or as
the
Tariq would call them, bed wenches.
yeah. I mean, these are the people who drive a wedge between people because of race, and they're surprised when they actually get their will. But let's continue the article.
Well, it's basically pointing out some of the previous films in history that have been considered notable for the African American community. Basically, he's complaining that none of the movies were directed by white men, or that Blazing Saddles contains a lot of racist and sexist jokes that have aged rather poorly. That kind of was the point.
Yeah, but let's continue the article and see what.
Okay, as you may have noticed, each of these older examples needed to be qualified in some ways.
Yeah.
No, I just explained that paragraph.
Oh, okay. Oh, well. Okay.
This is because, as Robinson pointed out, a lot of the progress for African Americans in blockbuster cinema has come with recent films, including Get Out, Girls Trip, and 2018's Black Panther will continue on from the groundwork laid by those films in 2017. No movie genre is nearly as popular or culturally influential in the 21st century as superhero films. If Black Panther does well at the box office and is critically acclaimed, the fact that it will have dominated as a superhero film will make it a cultural landmark unlike any before it.
Here, this is something before we continue. Here, and is critically acclaimed. You mean you know the Rotten Tomatoes good saying that anything that they consider racist would not be added to the site, something like that.
They inferred that any negative reviews of Black Panther would be considered racist and therefore removed.
Yes, so
you can't say something is critically acclaimed when it literally just came out.
Yeah.
Critics have barely had enough time to write reviews on it.
Yeah, and you see, I've seen articles like, "Oh, there are 3 negative reviews on Black Panther, and 2 of them are Australian." Let's see why.
Most of the reviews I've seen are saying that the movie is okay, and that's all.
Well, I actually kind of want to go see it just to see what all the noise is about, because Black Panther, as played by the guy, could be an interesting character. I liked him in Civil War when he appeared. It was a fun character. Anyways, that makes it all the more meaningful that Black Panther is one of the smartest, most politically grounded superhero movies ever made. Its closest equivalent would be Captain America: Civil War, which used the feud between Captain America and Iron Man as a metaphor for complex political debates about issues like government regulation and foreign policy. Well, that movie merely created a fictional conflict that could be applied to real-world problems. Black Panther doesn't deal only in abstractions. Characters in the film directly discuss actual injustices like the over-policing and mass incarceration of racial minorities, refugee crises, systemic poverty, colonialism, and post-colonial exploitation, and racism in general. Nor are these merely dropped in as cute ways to show that the audience that a superhero movie can be topical. Major character and motivations are rooted in the reality of these problems, boldly intersecting real-world battles between good and evil with their fantastical celluloid counterparts.
There are no real... What the fuck? There are no real-world battles of good and evil. Everything is varying shades of fucking gray.
Well, with the possible exception of World War II.
That says more about the author of this article than it does the movie.
Yeah, and you have some clear examples of evil, like mass shooters and just like people throwing gay people off rooftops and stuff like that. I mean, there are some evil stuff in the world and some good, but yeah, most of the stuff deals in different shades of gray, or like 50 Shades of Grey, perhaps. But yeah,
even when
I mean,
Black Panther does have to focus on its fictional world, it does so in a way that more directly applies to the political present than any superhero movie before it. Its central conflict is how the African kingdom of Wakanda, despite possessing technology that far surpasses anything else created on the planet, chooses
So it
to
doesn't.
isolate itself from the rest of the international community. Sorry?
It doesn't have technology that far surpasses everything on the planet. It has one resource that's more one energy resource that's better than most of the things naturally available. But if you look at the Marvel universe, there are other things that are more technologically advanced on the planet.
While a
I'm-
lesser movie would have addressed this conflict by simply arguing that isolation is wrong, Black Panther recognizes that the alternatives are not necessarily better. You know, that's kind of a good point. Eric Killmonger, the movie's chief villain, may be correct when he points out that Wakanda's isolationism has selfishly condemned oppressed people throughout the world to a terrible fate. At the same time, the movie uses Killmonger's character arc to demonstrate how those who wish to liberate the oppressed can easily become oppressors themselves if they become corrupted by their righteous anger. And Wakanda's isolationism can at least be justified as an attempt to avoid precisely that type of corruption, as well as protect its citizens from the deprivations of the outside world and maintain the country's autonomy. You know, Black Panther is sounding a lot like Trump.
It's ironic that they're praising this movie when these are the type of politics they've been condemning for the past 2 years.
I was just about to say that because the Killmonger character sounds like the SJW types, and basically saying, "Hey, this doesn't work because you're becoming an oppressor because you claim to fight for the oppressed." Duh.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You could combine Trump and Black Panther and come up with Reese's Pieces.
Ha.
Orange with black. Oh.
It's
Indeed,
almost-
Black Panther is particularly notable in how it locates the movie's own historic significance, a blockbuster superhero film made by overwhelmingly black creators, within the larger historical struggle for black self-determination. You know, Africa exists, guys.
But Wakanda does not, so it's not historically accurate.
With the point was expertly made by Johns Hopkins University historian N.D.B. Connolly in a recent essay for The Hollywood Reporter. What is historical about Black Panther, in perhaps the deepest respect, is how smartly it invokes the history of anti-colonial struggle and age-old visions of black self-determination. It grapples, as well, with an ambivalence just as old about the collectivist aspirations of black people on the one hand and the symbolic value of black monarchs on the other. No.
Just replace black people with white people, and see how the problem with this kind of logic is. Just replace that one word.
And it treats like black people as a block of people who should support this film because they're black.
Well, it's like if you talk to the old white nationalists from the 80s and the 90s, they say exactly the same thing.
You have, I mean, it sounds like the alt-right, to be honest.
I mean, how ironic can this get?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try and go see this movie now just to see what the fuck is going on with it. The danger in extolling the movie's political virtues, of course, is that it risks making it sound overly ponderous. This is one of the many failings of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and it's a pitfall that Black Panther definitely avoids. When it comes to creative visuals, engaging action, and likable characters, Black Panther stands confidently next to the best fare offered up by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is precisely why the political subtext is so effective. If Black Panther hadn't been fun, it wouldn't have worked as a superhero movie at all. It is an artistic triumph precisely because it is a blast to watch, and yet manages to tell a cerebral story and break down barriers at the same time. Okay, fair enough point. But the Avengers also was fun as hell.
I don't think this movie is cerebral in the slightest. Just knowing the source material, I mean,
you can make good movies out of bad source material.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they're trying to say that this movie is trying to have some deep philosophical message, when the truth, I mean, based on the premise, it's a story that's already been told. Actually, it's a story that's being told right now, and it's like these people are celebrating this movie as some sort of triumph when it's actually a regression.
Well, I don't know if
and the way that they're acting is regressive as well towards it.
Well, I don't know if you can say the movie itself is regressive. The movie will stand on its own. And you'll have to like take it or leave it on the face of it. It's the reaction of the people around it maybe that might be regressive.
Yeah, but the person writing it has some. I mean, it's a little bit self-conscious of what the person is writing, but still, kind of misses the point of the whole social justice aspect, and also that this is supposed to be so important for Black people. I mean, Salon actually claimed this was the first Black superhero, ignoring Blank Man, Meteor Man, Steel, Storm from X-Men, Spawn, Hancock,
Blade,
Blade.
which has been recognized as the start of the modern superhero craze.
Yeah, and you also have Cyborg, who was just in Justice League. I mean, there have been plenty of. I mean, Will Smith even played Deadshot, who isn't even black in the comics, and people just ignored that as well.
Catwoman,
I mean,
the Halle Berry version.
Yeah.
Basically, their point is that this is a blockbuster movie made entirely by African Americans, almost.
It's not. That's owned by Marvel.
Yeah, but you know, like the entire creative unit on set was primarily African Americans. In that sense, maybe yes, it is a bit of a tiny achievement in the fact that maybe this really is the first time that has happened on a major Hollywood studio with a budget this large.
However, I think that's really fucking pathetic to view that as some sort of triumph.
Well, if
because the movie it really doesn't change anything.
If the movie was abjectly terrible, they wouldn't hearken this as a triumph, would they?
Let's just pause at that. The movie is abjectly good either.
No, you're missing my point. If the movie was terrible, would you be calling this a triumph?
No, of course not.
Yeah, so basically what they're saying is that this is the first great movie made by African Americans on a major Hollywood system, and they're saying that's an achievement. And you know what? I'm inclined to agree to a certain extent. I'm just against the notion that that fact alone should elevate the movie above other great movies like Captain America: Civil War, for instance. Just by itself, the facts alone should not raise the movie above in any sense.
Well, there's also the question of whether it should be culturally relevant based on that alone. And it's like, okay, assume that those circumstances are true and they're given and whatnot. What does that change? Well, not a damn thing.
Well, you know, like I said, like I just pointed out, it is a certifiable fact maybe that this is the first blockbuster with the cast that being what it is, right? As for being a cultural movement, well, that's for the movie to end up with. So I don't think criticism against it being a cultural movement in and of itself is necessarily very valid because, well, we don't know. We don't know what movie will be a cultural movement until the movie's been shown, until the movie's been distributed, until all the reviews and all the cultural celebration around it like passes. Because, you know, any Pixar movie could be a cultural movement, but then it dies out within a couple days after release, right? So, you know, until we've had enough emotional distance from the release of the movie, like we did with Ghostbusters 2016, everyone actually now realizes how terrible a movie that was, even the feminists. We'll just have to wait. I don't think preemptively saying this movie shouldn't be a cultural movement is a good thing for healthy discourse.
Well, I'm not talking about the movie in general. I'm talking about the facts surrounding who created the movie. That alone isn't really culturally relevant. It's only really relevant to the people who were looking for it to be relevant in the first place. I mean, the average moviegoer doesn't care about these sort of things. They just want to see a nice popcorn flick.
Or they just want to see a good movie.
Yeah. I was about to say that. People just want to see a good movie. I think that's a good transition to our last topic, which is I've done so many videos on this, but Let me screen share. Hang on. And here the topic of what the stream is actually called. Yeah, I call it Jar Jar Abrams. He's basically saying that
That works. Jar Jar Abrams.
I like to see it.
I'll never gonna be able to get that out of my head now.
Yeah, because he screwed up episode 7, so I'm gonna call him Jar Jar Abrams. Blames
That's
Sexist
debatable.
audio for the last. Um, let's go through this article, but I think this is actually the original article which I saw for this stuff, because it popped up yeah, like a little bit over a day ago, so or 2 days ago. So do you want to read first, since Salt has
I
read?
think I'm gonna pass.
Do you want to read
on
Salt,
reading.
or do you want me to read?
My
can
network
read.
connection experiencing difficulties. Check your connectivity. I don't think I'll be able to read this without someone disconnecting my internet right now.
All right.
Okay, give me a link. I'll read it.
I've screen shared it. If you
Okay.
want.
J.J. Abrams, Star Wars fans who didn't like The Last Jedi are threatened by women characters. Exclusive. As he prepares to get back into the Star Wars universe, the filmmaker gets honest fan criticism of The Last Jedi and how it won't impact his next feature.
Oh.
Let's see. Give me one sec. Okay, there we go. As he prepares to re-enter the Star Wars universe with his upcoming and still untitled Episode 9, Force Awakens filmmaker J.J. Abrams is unbothered by the recent backlash to the diversity of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Asked by IndieWire about the pushback from Star Wars fans, who decried Rian Johnson's film for its focus on the more female-centric stories, boasted by the addition of franchise newbies like Laura Dern and Kelly Marie Tran, Abrams was clear: their problem isn't Star Wars, their problem is being threatened. In December, an alt-right group claimed responsibility for lowering the film's Rotten Tomatoes scores, claiming that its issues with the film partially stemmed from introducing more female characters into the franchise's universe. As the Telegraph noted at the time, user reviews included comments like, politically correct to the point of boredom, SJW propaganda, and I'm frustrated that feminism and diversity have made their way into this film. This has ruined Star Wars for me, as well as my kids. Keep liberalism out of it and stop ruining once good things.
And the
Can I
one
just point
thing,
out that reads like a troll?
yeah, but just one thing the author here is also being very unethical with is that Rotten Tomatoes have confirmed it wasn't bots or an alt-right group, so this is bullshit.
Well, you know, the facts don't matter. The feels do. Tim Pool got banned off of YouTube for pointing out how everyone was wrong about the recent Florida school shooter being part of a
they're trying to
alt-right
say
group.
that the alt-right has problems with the women, and then that's really not the alt-right's focal point, or why they have a problem with SJWs. So it's kind of trying to frame them as some type of misogynist when that's really not their thing.
I mean, Mike Cernovich claimed that he cost a Rogue One like $200 million in revenue because of his stupid Twitter campaign. Like, the alt-right is fucking stupid. Okay, can we just agree? Just
Yeah, but Gamergate is alt-right, so therefore you can't have an opinion because you're alt-right, Andre, because you support Gamergate.
Gamergate is alt-right, and they hate women, so the alt-right must hate women by that logic.
Well,
yeah.
Let's continue with the article.
Okay. Abrams was unfazed. Star Wars is a big galaxy, and you can sort of find almost anything you want to in Star Wars, he said. If you're someone who feels threatened by women and needs to lash out against them, you can probably find an enemy in Star Wars. You can probably look at the first movie that George Lucas did, Star Wars A New Hope, and say that Leia was too outspoken or she was too tough. Anyone who anyone who wants to find a problem with anything can find a problem. Holy shit, that line. The internet seems to be made for that.
Well, it is.
Oh my god. Like, this is such a straw man. Nobody has a problem with Leia in episode 4, you goddamn idiots.
I mean, well,
I mean, you say that, but then you get
certainly
these
someone
examples.
could find a problem, but
Yeah.
it's like, does that how many people actually hold that opinion? That's the real question. Probably not many.
Yeah. It's a very, very small minority.
And you can't control their opinions. I mean, one of the fun aspects of the internet is no matter how many controls you put in place, if you have a comment section or if you have a platform that allows for easy dissemination of views with just pressing enter on your keyboard, you can't control who espouses viewpoints and what viewpoints they espouse instantly. I mean, you can retroactively like go, okay, you can't say that and delete the tweet. But once they make the tweet in the first place, well, it's out there. You can't stop it.
It's kind of like anybody who has a problem with this only has a problem because of women. Obviously.
The women's, the women.
Respect the women.
Respect the women. Let's continue.
Asked if fan outcry would at all impact his vision for the upcoming film, Abrams was clear. Not in the least, he said, adding, "There's a lot more I would like to say about it, but I feel like it's a little too early to be having the episode 9 conversation. I say that the story of Rey and Poe and Finn and Kylo Ren, if you look, there are 3 men and 1 woman. To those that are complaining there are too many women in Star Wars, their story continues in a way that I couldn't be more excited about and cannot wait for people to see." Which is ironic because he's the one claiming to want gender parity in this film, and he still doesn't have it.
Abrams, that is kind of funny now that you look into it. It's like
Abrams
the finer details, Abrams, the finer details.
Abrams has weathered this sort of blowback before. I think everyone is going to have their point of view, Abrams said. Certainly something I discovered early on in the Star Wars world is that you're only going to have an incredibly passionate and vocal fan base, and they're all going to have a lot of specific opinions.
Well, regarding The Last Jedi, it's not specific opinions. It's them pointing out flaws in the movie and you're calling them like threatened. Like, Jesus Christ.
Well, you know.
Here's a little projection by Abrams. Equality in the industry is currently top of mind for the filmmaker, as Abrams is being honored next week at the Athena's Film Festival Leading Man Award, given to men in Hollywood who have a strong track record of serving as vocal allies and effective advocates for women in entertainment.
Oh my
Previous honorees including Paul Feig and David Oyelowo? I don't know how to say
He's
it.
the guy who played Martin Luther King in Selma, I believe. Which is a good movie. Like, if you look at... Here's the thing. You can have movies that advocate for social justice. You can have movies that directly advocate for social justice. It's been happening throughout Hollywood's history. Nobody cares. Nobody rational, I should say. Nobody rational cares about the message if the film isn't good. If the film is good, it doesn't matter what message you have. No one's going to like it.
When something is so obviously motivated by social justice that it's just apparent, people tend to take issue with that. It's like the title of that award is such a mouthful, you kind of can tell that feminists and social justice warriors have had their claws in it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, also, the complaints compared from The Force Awakens and Episode 8 were nothing with Rogue One. I mean, it has some minor flaws here and there, but overall, it's a decent movie. So people weren't complaining about it as much as the two main movies in the series. And when people see a good movie, they're not just gonna bitch. I mean, you have the alt right people bitching just for
No, you just
bitching.
have somewhat. No one. There is no movie that is universally loved. There will be that one guy always in the back of the room shouting, "This movie sucks."
And the question is, why do they constantly pay attention to that one guy and make it seem like his one opinion is somehow the opinion of everyone who has a problem with the movie?
Yeah, well, just because they're the loudest. It's because they're the ones who are. Think of it this way.
Sometimes they're not even the loudest. I think it's just a tool they use to dismiss criticism.
Well, you get. Look at it this way. Say as a person you're walking down the street and you're particularly well dressed, and you hear compliments as you walk down the street. But then that one person says, "You fucking ugly guy." You're gonna remember that one guy rather than all the compliments before it.
Yeah.
I think it's human nature. It's human
You're gonna
nature
remember
to
that one
basically
guy,
focus on the criticism, focus on the
but
negative.
you're not going to say everybody who had something bad to say said what that one guy said. That's what you're not going to do.
Yeah, but you're gonna remember it. You're gonna remember it above all. That's what I think these people are looking at, because you're not looking at an actual person online. You're looking at the comments themselves. And
True.
if a lot of the comments are good, and you just brush past those because you know your film is good, right? Human nature. But then the one guy who says this movie sucks because it has all these people in it, it's like, you're going to focus on that.
Well, it kind of goes to show that these people aren't artists, because most artists don't think like that.
Oh, yes, they do.
Think I mean,
you're not an artist then. I'm an artist.
I don't know. Most artists I know have problems with a lot of serious problems with their own work, and they're never satisfied with it. They don't go around patting themselves on the back before the reviews come in. They're a nervous fucking wreck.
Yeah, well, you could say that, but a lot of art award shows exist across the spectrum. You have support groups, you have all these sorts of artists pat themselves in the back. They're always thinking their work is the best. Trust me, I'm an artist.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to go AFK for a sec. Can someone continue?
Yeah, I can continue.
Okay.
I wish it weren't something that there was a need to do. He said when asked about the honor, it's a bit like Black History Month. Like, why should it be why should it just be a month? Why can't it just be part of history? Why does there have to be a special award for someone who is working to be as collaborative with as many women as possible? That's simply good business. We will keep making mistakes and trying to do better, but the end game is equality.
Well, it's an admirable goal, isn't it?
I mean, that's simple good business. No, because Last Jedi tanked compared to The Force Awakens.
Dude, it still made over $1 billion. No one cares.
Yeah,
it didn't tank. It's one of the 14 highest grossing movies of all time.
Yeah, but if you compare what it could have made,
even then,
it was tanking.
It still made over $1 billion. I don't think we can say it tanked anymore.
Well, it could have made $2 billion.
Yeah, well, so could have Avatar, which it did.
Well, Avatar,
but
yeah.
But it could have made $3 billion. Who knows? Let's just not go down that line of thinking anymore. I think it's
but the quality of the movie is what people made people not watch that movie as much as the previous one.
Well, yeah, you could argue that, but then you look at the top 14 and you see Transformers movies in the highest earning movies of all times.
That movie. I mean, that movie knows what it is. It is self-conscious of what it's just explosions. I mean, people go into that movie not expecting like an Oscar-worthy movie. They just want to see robots fighting and explosions.
It would be nice if it was an Oscar-worthy movie. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying otherwise. But you know what you're getting, and with Star Wars, there's a certain requirement or an idea of what Star Wars is, and they just crapped on it. Abrams and his wife Katie McGrath are CEOs of production company Bad Robot, and Abrams emphasized that equality in the industry and continuing to advocate for women inside of it's enormously important to them, and it impacts many of his production decisions. The filmmaker shared that in recent meetings targeted around employing crews and filmmakers for projects, he and McGrath have asked their agency's CAA for a list of potential collaborators that represents the makeup of the country. That immediately changed the conversation, he added. When you would look at lists through the optic of the lens of equality, they were shocking. Yeah, well, that's soft bigotry of low expectation.
Well, you see here, let me just like interject. It's not a bad idea to want equality and diversity in film productions. It's not inherently a bad idea. The point he's making here is actually very, very good. Because if you only have a certain pool of certain people, well, and you're only drawing from that pool and not like, let's say, the wide diversity of other people. I mean, there is a point when female actors basically say there are no good roles for women because they don't write roles for them, right?
Then maybe those women need to use their clout and write those roles.
I think say that, yes.
It's these people are constantly relying on someone else to give them the stories that they want.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work like that.
There are fewer. What I think there should be fewer obstacles if they decide to write for those movies to get to the screen. I think that's the strongest. Like if there is a bias within Hollywood against scripts written by women or minorities or casts of minorities and women or stories focusing on minorities and women, if there is a bias, I think that should be mitigated as much as possible to allow them the opportunity to contribute. If they don't wish to contribute, well, then that's on them, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's also I'm still this. How do these stories who have specifically that message by these kind of people get made if there is that obstacle there?
Well, you could argue it's like, oh, just one road in. It's our time. That's probably why they're focusing so heavily on these few films that do come out that are like this.
Yeah, but it's different. It's different companies doing it. It's not just Marvel.
Well, I don't know.
There has to be more than one road in if we're in an age where these movies are getting made left and right.
Yeah, and
controversies are popping up. There has
even limited.
I mean, logically speaking.
God damn it.
Internet connections, my friend. Internet connections.
Yeah.
Mine.
Jesus. Yeah, you just disappeared. What were you saying? I thought it was me who was disconnecting or something.
Logically speaking.
I was saying, logically speaking, there has to be more than one road into getting these type of films made if all of these films are popping up by different studios, unless these people are all friends.
Yeah, and you could argue that is happening. This year, Lady Bird, one of the most acclaimed films of the year, directed by a woman, written by a woman, and I think the indie route is a way in for a lot of these people because, well, if major blockbusters are biased against this sort of thing, then they don't have that option, right? So if they focus on the bottom and work their way up, eventually everything will just be rosy.
Yeah, but there's also there's never been so easy to make movies ever. You can do movies on YouTube. You can crowdfund it. You don't even need these big studios anymore, and you can prove your worth that way.
But what they want is they want immediate big cred, they want immediate focus on their issues.
Well, it doesn't
work. They want
like
the big budgets. They want the acclaim immediately rather than working up for it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there are movies done by small studios, even some of which you can see on Steam, that are very fucking well done, and they're done by studios without these massive, huge budgets. I mean, you have movies that are done like almost entirely in CG because the studio can't afford the budget to shoot at different locations, and they're well done. So I mean, there are avenues for them to get these things done with putting their own force behind it. It's just they don't want that. They want someone else to do most of the work. They want to get all the attention without any of the risk and without any of the buildup.
See, this statement from him, I don't really have anything against this either. He emphasized a need for the industry to look beyond its current talent rosters. That's not inherently bad, to be honest either.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we all get tired of the same like Sam Worthingtons or being trotted out as leading men every once in a while, and then you look and it's like every once in a while you'll get an Idris Elba, but beyond that, it's like, well, can you name any other leading man black men? You know?
Samuel L.
Denzel
Jackson.
Washington, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, but they're not
Will
spring chickens.
Smith.
They've been around forever, though. They're pretty. They're like
True.
the black men, you know?
Michael B.
Yeah.
Jordan, Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, but you're
Tyler
missing the
Perry.
point. You're missing the point of what I was saying.
What was that?
Well, it's like the diversity of talent coming into the industry is like overwhelmingly one faction or another. And they
Well,
could
that's a problem with the industry and the way that it operates. I
Yeah.
mean, at a certain point, stagnation is going to happen considering the type of industry that Hollywood is. It focuses on mostly movies or ideas that are going to have huge payoff because they're trying to sell a product. They're not trying to sell they're not always trying to sell a story or a moral question or some type of lesson. Most of the time they're trying to sell a product.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
it's like these people aren't product minded. And I think that's where a lot of the conflict comes in because in the end, they don't care that they have to sell a product. And that's why a lot of movies that are just made by SJWs and only funded by them tend to not do as well as you would expect for something else in the same category.
I think people only care about quality or that they're getting what they paid for in terms of Transformers, because we can't call that quality, can we? But
Yeah, but it's
I mean,
if you watch a
you know-
Transformers movie, you know what to expect.
yeah,
Yeah.
get what you pay for.
Every single, that's part of selling the product. People know what they're going to get. And people are happy
Yeah.
with that.
Here, I just want to go through the rest of the article. A lot of the issue, I think, stems not from people who are capable or people who are worthy of being given a shot, but rather people who just don't even get to be in the room. They don't get to be considered. They don't look the way the usual suspects look. Abrams said, "You can't possibly have the change if the options that are being considered are just of one pool." Abrams then cited Blacklist founder Franklin Leonard, who tweeted in October 2015, "When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." Abrams said the sentiment resonated for him on many levels. "We're not asking to take away the male point of view or male artistry." Well, that's kind of what you're saying, though. Our male contribution, he said, "we're simply saying what is fair. I can see why people might get freaked out by it. But the people who are getting freaked out are the people who are accustomed to that privilege, and this is not oppression. This is about fairness."
They aren't freaking out. They're getting pissed off because you're actively trying to change something that was already one way into another. It's like, well, these people are accustomed to privilege. No! They've been with the story since the beginning and it's been one way, and you're purposely trying to say, no, you can't have that. This has to change, and you're not allowed to have an opinion about it, because if we do, we're going to call you privileged because you've had this thing. And it's like, we've had this thing because we've put the money, the time, and the effort into it.
Yeah.
It didn't just fall off the trees.
This is why we can't have good things.
It's like these people. I hate to bring up this fucking reference again every fucking time. Cain and Abel. These people are actively trying to destroy what they're envious of. If we can't have it, you can't have it either. So what we're going to do is make sure it sucks for the both of us.
I mean, J.J. Abrams made the most Mary Sue character I've ever seen in a movie recently, in recent time at least, where the main character just trumps everyone in every category in Force Awakens, which he made that character to begin with, to basically make everyone look inferior to what to her at least, because Finn in the Force Awakens is inferior to her. Han Solo is inferior to her. Kylo Ren is inferior to her, and in the Last Jedi, even Luke is inferior to her. I mean, everyone is inferior to her.
To be fair, this is Daisy Ridley. I would be glad to be inferior to her.
Yeah, but that's the person, not
You
I'm talking
sick
about Ray
fuck.
the character. I'm talking about the character here, and that's why him saying, "Oh, it's we should be equality." I mean, if there's supposed to be equality, shouldn't there be some kind of balance? And you just tipped the balance way the fuck off, and made a female character way superior than everyone else.
Here's a
Because he
fun
doesn't
fact.
actually
Here's a
know
fun
it.
fact. Daisy Ridley also knows Japanese.
Yeah.
I think Salt is having a loss of blood there.
Yeah, I think he needs some personal time. But my whole issue with the two main new Star Wars movie in the new trilogy is that they are so much focused on the SJW themes, with the Mary Sue element. And in the last movie, in the Last Jedi, basically that all men are stupid and they should just listen and believe to women, even though they don't have any plan to execute. I mean,
I don't even think that's the problem because I can handle stories that have that message. The problem is how they've handled it. I mean,
yeah.
where is the struggle that Rey is supposed to have been going through in order to get to this point in the Force? I mean, there's no challenge to Rey, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's like to be a hero, you need to fight your way through challenge to reach the top. And unfortunately, from what I've seen in the movies, it's just been an easy ride all the way up.
She's dealing with a dictative government who would kill her on sight, and it's like, okay, name a scene in which she actually has to fear for her life.
There's really not one.
Well,
I mean,
arguably the Kylo Ren lightsaber fight, but you know.
No, but in the Last Shadow,
She doesn't even get hurt in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny.
It's like, at least Luke lost a fucking arm. I mean, and he was running. He lost a fucking arm.
You know what some people were saying about The Last Jedi, too? It's like, it's an important film because it teaches us that our heroes can fail. And I'm like,
Rey doesn't fail.
Episodes 1 through 3 taught us that exact same lesson, and you're saying that this is important because it says that exact same message? Jesus Christ, you stupid fucks.
At least the people taught us that our heroes, at least the prequels taught us that heroes can fall.
I have something from the chat. Disney is bleeding money across multiple divisions. Diversity and social justice doesn't sell. Don't hire Marxists to work for a capitalist company. I mean, that's a good point.
Well, it's like Disney is bleeding money, but they don't give a fuck. They don't care what happens to these stories. They're
should
just pumping. They just pumping more money into it. Let's sell more toys.
Yeah, just bolt down the table so Karl Marx can't yell "revolution" and try and flip it.
Yeah,
I mean, the world-class bullshitters have done several videos on this topic, on where the toys from Disney don't sell at all, especially the Ray, the Rose ones, the Calamari Tran, the Rose, awful character, and like the female eccentric ones don't sell at all.
well, it's like
Fun
Disney
news.
is only looking at stuff like that. That would be the only reason they're upset with Abrams and the directors of the movie, is because they're not selling as many toys. I mean, as long as they make their profit back off of the Star Wars movie itself, which most likely they did, I mean, they don't really care if the story is good or not. Disney will peddle as much bullshit as possible if it means making a quick buck.
Well, yeah, that's capitalism for you.
Yeah, but
I mean, look what they let people do to the Marvel comic book industry.
Yeah, we'll see how things turn out with their new editor-in-chief and everything, but what can you do beyond not buying the products that you don't want?
I'd argue Disney is a bigger problem than the SJWs at this point, but that's a whole entire another topic.
That seems like a good point to end things, Andre.
Huh?
That seems like a good.
I mean, I think we've covered it pretty significantly. Anything you guys want to share before we close down?
I just released a new video on my YouTube channel, Uncut_Salt. Part 8 of my Halo 2 Legendary Co-op Let's Play.
Ooh.
And you, Frost, anything you want to share?
You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Probably going to be doing a series for Guild Wars 2 pretty soon, so if you're interested in raiding or the Guild Wars 2 scene, you should check me out.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.